Oh, good evening here on this Friday night. Wanted to come back. I needed it to do a broadcast. Welcome to the LSFL number 4 letter U broadcast here at YouTube station channel. So please subscribe. Um, and I've got part two of the greatest debut albums of all time. So sorry, I'm going to apologize in advance for the sound right now. I'm still working on it. So we'll get it. We'll get it. Let's go to my list, see which one I found. Let's see what's this one. No, it wasn't that. So anyway, um, I did want to say something. Um, I did want to say something that if you work with just petty BS at your work, uh, you don't have time for it. I just say don't even answer. Of the stupid stuff um, that you go through at work with the just petty stuff. That's all I got to say. Don't even say don't even say anything. Don't even say anything. Um, it's ridiculous. Um, I could talk more into it, but I'm not going. Maybe at a later time. But if that's something you're going through, just don't. And it's hard not to let it get to you because it's so stupid, and petty, and stupid. But anyway, um, sorry about the audio. Like I said, I'm still trying to get that set up, but we'll get the gist of it. So last time I did the topic in between my Bible topic of chapter summaries. So this evening, we're just going to kind of take a look and not, well, take a listen to what made these albums so great. All right. And you may not think, well, why wasn't that on? I just looked up a couple lists, and these were the ones that were on it. I know there's honorable mentions, of course, you know, but so we'll get through some. We'll get through some, and and we'll next time we'll get back into our Bible topic of chapter summaries and praying on what book to go through. I don't know if I want to go through Mark or if I want to go through like Romans or another book. Uh, think about it, pray on it. But yeah, um, these are um, a list of just the best debut albums. So no particular order for year, band, or anything, and nothing, in alphabetical order and anything. It's just random. So anyway, hope everyone's doing well. Kids are almost out of school. Um, it's getting there. It's awesome. So anyway, we're gonna hear some snippets of what made these albums so great. And under the copyright laws, I do not own, I do not um, whatever. This is for educational purposes only. This isn't a reaction. This isn't that. This is, you know, it's not a reaction video. So, um, no, we're going to take a listen and the best we can with the audio I have, um, and kind of see where and why these albums were so great, and hopefully we'll get through some. I'll skip around, but I'll go through the list again, and then maybe I'll stop and I'll look up the particular album and then go for it. So apparently, the list here is great debut albums. All right, and we're going to start off with Van Halen from 1978, and this changed a lot. Um, the 70s were kind of really coming to an end as far as classic rock. And Van Halen was one of the bands that I think really set off a different direction for rock music. And back then, like me myself, this is an album you just learn from front to back. I think you learned every song on this album. It doesn't matter. You learned it and played it. This is an album that you played you knew these songs. Even the non-radio hits, what Ice Cream Man was on this, Jamie's Crying was on this. You knew it. You learned it. So, sorry about the audio. We'll get, we'll get it taken care of, but we'll try to get what we can here. So, our first song off the album is Running with the Devil. Unmistakable. Bam. This is song. When you know it starts, you know exactly what it is. Exactly what it is. Sorry about, like I said, the audio, but what is those platonics or something that he really took to another level? All right. Bam. Right off the top, you knew that's just, oh, that, you know what it is. And it's not an upbeat rocker. It's a kind of that mid-tempo groove. It's not a rocker, so to speak. You know, they just kind of, it's like getting you prepared for what's to come, I guess. You know, so the next track, of course, is the famous guitar solo Eruption, which there's debate as far as guitar players go who did that picking that he does first. Ace Frehley, I think, claimed he did it, and Eddie Van Halen picked it off and just took it to another. I don't know, but anyway, next song is Eruption. blew people. This just blew minds. And holy crap! And when this came out, and you heard something like that, it just set the guitar world on fire. It really did. So this is why I think this is on the list of one of the greatest debut albums ever. Um, it's like there's not unmistakable. You know what I mean? Unmistakable. Now, here you think they start out with their own tune, running with the double, a mid-tempo. Then they come in with the eruption and the guitar solo to change the game at the time for that. But then they go into the Kinks. You really got me. You know, they could have started with more of what they've written, but they didn't. And I think they did that. I don't know. I'm just going to figure that this is their roots and background of these earlier rock bands that set the tone, you know, that changed the sound, that changed in the Kinks, man. And I think this is kind of where we left off, if that makes sense. And then Van Halen, the you know, I guess a tribute or you know what who they are also and where they got a lot of their influence from. Excuse me, is you really got me. And throws in a little of his own little style there. So the background vocals too, I have to say, with Michael Anthony, great, great, very underrated. I think it's very underrated. Very underrated harmonies with Michael Anthony. You know, and I think that's something that a lot of people really don't. I haven't really heard many people talk about that with Van Halen. Their vocals. You know, you got David Lee Roth, of course, is your lead, but really between Eddie and Michael, the background vocals were really nice. You know, really nice. So really nice. And Ain't Talk About Love is next. And we got a stupid. All right. Very distinct guitar sound, yes. Very distinct. And it sounds pretty simple, you know. It stays with that pattern, you know, and in between a lot, which he talked about, he threw in a lot of in between riffs a lot of times. So he was doing rhythm and partially leads in the like through the song, you know, or the chords. And I think he toned that down later, if I understand that right. You know, got more structured with the songwriting and the songs, you know. Um, but this is just a reason why this was such a breakthrough, great album. I'm the one. We're it's on. It's on. My man. So they just picked it up. I mean, they just pick and they can smoke. Okay, and this showed you, like I think where they left off from. You really got me. You know, I think that was the end of a chapter of rock. You know, and then it started getting into maybe the heavier stuff. But then I think Van Halen came along and just resh- kind of just reshaped rock and roll. And this album just, you know, screams it. Jamie's Crying is next, is the next track. Another kind of mid tempo. It's three, four, one, two, three, four. And I think his sound was so distinct. You didn't. I think the sound that he also had was very distinct, and I think that's what set off the chain of sounds like that, and why everybody who was a guitar player went for that. You know, um, I always thought Alex Van Halen's drums were just solid. I love the pop he got on his snare. Very tight, very pop, you know, very tight. The bass with Michael Anthony, just the rhythm also, you know, I think underrated, you know, kept the song together. Absolutely. You know, with Michael and Alex. Yeah. So that's why this is just such an incredible album. And the next one is Atomic Punk. then they pick it up, another rocker. Just then they just laid it out again. Man, feel your love tonight. The next track. Let's see what that's. That's another one I think was a lot of people. Um, if you're a band, you played it. Did I skip Jamie's crying? Oh, oh, I did. And this is one I think that really emphasizes how good their backing vocals were. You know, Little Dreamer's the next track. A little bluesy, I think. A little bluesy. Backing vocals. See, and he throws those in the middle of the rhythm. So there definitely was a pattern to the music, but it was just so good, you know. Um, every track is just, you know. So the next track is Ice Cream Man, which I learned that um, as good as Eddie Van Halen was, he had something that he had trouble doing was some kind of a plucking that David Lee Roth could do. And I don't know if it was just the style or just what it was, but Eddie Van Halen just, you know, had trouble doing it or just couldn't get the feel of it, I guess. And that was Ice Cream Man, and David Lee Roth would come out with the acoustic and play that, and play it. So with Ice Cream Man, and they did it live. I got to see him play it live, and it was pretty cool. Oh, brother. Apologize for the sound. It was the boogie. It just sounds like an old rock and roll song. I'm like kind of an ACDC, early ACDC, but then, bam. And finally, On Fire, which when I seen them at the old arena here, the Dome in St. Louis, it was the Mean Street album. They opened up with this. Yeah, they opened up with this. Nuts. They opened up with this, if I remember right. This was, let's see, this was maybe, let's see, was my first moving pictures tour. Rush was my very first concert in '81. So Mean Street came out in what, '82 or '83, maybe, or '81, same year? I don't know, but man, it was one you never forget. Never forget a concert like that ever. You know. So that is Van Halen's first album. Let's see what else is on the list. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, Rage Against the Machine, Boston. Oh, sorry. All right, Boston's first album. Let's see. From start to finish. Great, great, great album, period. I think this is another album that just, the spectrum is so wide on these albums. So start off with More Than a Feeling, which we have a commercial. I apologize for that. Ridiculous, but hey, anytime, anytime. All right, Brad Delp. Such an you think Freddie Mercury could hit Brad Delp, man? Crazy. Did I lose? I hope I didn't lose. Oh, okay. Another just, and I think this was done in his home studio, if I remember right. This was done in his home studio. Great. My gosh. And this is foreplay long time. This is like a greatest hits album. Or this is like greatest hits albums. And then I have, and then the drums once again. and then it just in your face, nuts. And you don't forget these out. You know that's why these albums are so unforgettable. Comes back down, a little jazz, and then it just, man, my gosh, this is rock and roll band, rock and roll band, and like I said, this is like Gray's hits album. Here, did you hear that little? That's 76, okay, 1976. He did that little ding, 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 ding. So it's kind of was been being done. I think that's. Let's see if we hear it again. Right there. So 76. So I think Van Halen just took it and just emphasized it to another level. And this is called "Something About You." Is the next tune. Very nice. The production, the structure, just these songs are just so tight and so on. This is smoking, a little shuffle, groove, and let me take you home tonight. I think very ahead of its time, definitely. Very ahead of its time. Very ahead of its time. Absolutely ahead of its time. That's why like these albums just don't you will always remember these albums from start to finish. That's how great they are. Let's see. So that was Boston. Let's see. We got a group I like, you may not. But I think they're it was just it turned out to change again, as far as rock, you know, and this is Weezer, the Blue album. So some described it as nerd rock. It's rock. I don't care if these guys, and I think they turned the corner of the long-haired spray band hair bands that anybody can rock. Just on looks, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You know, it's an image. It's just an image. So I think they kind of really came out and said you don't have to be a long-haired rock god to be rock. You know, and yeah, and if you really listen to this album, it's just really interesting. It's really interesting. So this is My Name is Jonas is the opening track. Um, the opening track for this. So acoustic, very and heavy, very heavy, mid tempo, not a fast blistering, but very punches. You know, and this was called. The next tune is No One. Very just. This is The World Has Turned and Left Me Here. The next track. I think this changed also, you know, and of course Buddy Holly. I think this was just so unique, very unique. And this is Undone, the Sweater Song. It's kind of a bluesy kind of tune, slow. Two, three, four, one, two, three, four, one, two, three, four, one, two, three, four. This is Surf Wax America. Almost punk, almost like a new, kind of, almost like a new punk. Um, it's not just very simple, and then it breaks. Just kind of sounds very like a punk song. And this is Say It Isn't So. Um, kind of another mid-tempo, kind of groovy. follows. Almost the same tempo as Sweater Song. Maybe a tad slower. And this is In the Garage is the next track. Harmonica. I think it's a harmonica. It's almost like kind of a goth. If kind of just very. Next song is Holiday. Kind of same tempo as the other ones. Almost the same, kind of the same slower mid tempo. And this is next to is only. I think a very underrated album. Very. But in a way, it's not because I just don't think. I still think it's underrated. I think. I still think it's underrated, actually. Very cool. Very cool. So that was Weezer. The Blue Album is on the list. And let's see what else. Strokes. Let's do something from the 80s, and then we'll wrap up another 70s album. Well, look at the Smiths. 1984. Their debut album. All right. This is the Smiths. Real Around the Fountain. All right. The first song. And I don't know, do you? I like Morrissey. I'm sorry, but I like Morrissey with the Smiths much better than his solo. Sorry, but kind of very emo, would you say? Very emo album or song. And this is You've Got Everything Now, the next track. English, very 80s, screaming 80s. that was a, that was a, that was a junior. And this is Miserable Lies, the next track. moody. I think this was like really why it's on the list. I think it's just really it's really something I, almost like cult following the Smiths. And this is Pretty Girls Make Graves is the next song. See, there's no heavy guitars, acoustic, drums, bass. But I guess at the time, is why it's on the list. When this came out, it just flows. It just puts you in different moods. You know, I don't know. And this is the next track is the hand that rocks the cradle is the next um, song. It's got that very clean, a very clean guitar sound, kind of chorus on it effect. And the next track is This Charming Man. Picks up double time of what every track except this one picks up double time. And this is Still Ill is the next track. Different, I guess, at the time. I don't know. Next track is Hand in Glove. See, I can't get into it. I can't get into it like, but I'm sure, like I said, why it's on the list is that at the time, this was definitely a different approach. And this is what difference does it make is the next track. Could be the effects. But they're doing power. It's like power chords with an acoustic instead of distorted guitars like rock. It's I wonder, can you imagine if this was played like a heavier rock, distorted rock album? Even though this is classified as rock, but the electric is just clean. Next track, I Don't Owe You Anything. So, and I think this is the second to the last track. And it kept that picky, that that throughout all these songs. This is Suffer Little Children. Is the last track on the album. Very melancholy. That that's a word to describe this. Very melancholy. Very melancholy. But yeah, so why don't we just these are the songs, the albums that were listed though. We did the Van Halen, Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, Rage Against the Machine, Rage Against the Machine, Boston, Black Sabbath, the Beatles, Please Please Me, Pearl Jam 10, The Doors, first album, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, Are You Experienced, Weezer, the Blue Album, was the kind of The Clash, his first album, 77, Joy Division, Unknown Pleasures, The Strokes, is this is this is this it? Patti Smith, Horses, 75. The Velvet Underground and Nico, 67. The Smiths, you just listened to. The Cars, The Cars, first album, 78. Led Zeppelin's first album, 68. Wow, 10 years difference. Can you imagine the difference from 10 years? Oasis, definitely maybe. And the Stone Roses, 89, first album. But yeah, you know, we are definitely we're definitely um, I can get to it. We are definitely going. Let's go with the Cars. I mean, you know, and they used to joke about this being the greatest hits album. It was kind of a joke, ongoing joke with them. You know, um, this is the Cars' first album. You know, um, Good Times Roll, and you know, just this first three, just these first three tunes on this is amazing. See if I can get to it. Guys, this is 78, the same year Van Halen came out, debut album. So you can, this is pre New Wave, before New Wave, I guess. Would this be the birth of New Wave and 80s music, basically? The Cars. And the second track, My Best Friend's Girl. Yeah. And Barry, you know this is another album. When you hear when they start, you know exactly, you know it, bam, right off the bat. Third song track is Just What I Needed, which I've played. I can't tell you how many times I've played it. One of the greatest, probably one of the most known intros of all time. Period. And this is I'm in touch with your world. So even their deep tracks are just quirky, but not nerdy. Not. I think this set so much in motion for later rock through the '90s too. And like I said, this is probably the birth of new wave '80s music. Kind of, but rock too. It's got this definitely a rock feel to it though. At the same time, this broke I think a lot of boundaries. Here, this broke a lot of boundaries on this album. Next track, Don't You Stop. Once these commercials, stupid commercials get over with, we'll, come on, come on, come on, come on. Let's go. Let's go. Even Don't You Stop. The birth of white people dancing. I'm sorry. And you got to remember, too, at this time, rap was underground. Basically, rap was underground music. Um, until Blondie with Rapture came out on the mainstream with Rapture. You're all I've got tonight. Just it speaks for itself with the guitar riffs and but it changed so much. 78. I was 12 years old. My gosh. Oh, and the next track, Bye Bye Love. No wonder they joked about this is the greatest hits album. Every song on this album is just, but later with Panorama and Shake It Up, they kept on, they could, just to keep going is just phenomenal, creative, brilliant with other albums too. And moving in stereo. First time, Fast Times at Richmond High, BB Kate's coming out of the swimming pool. That was it. who, sorry, but oh, very crazy. And finally, the last track, All Mixed Up, is the last track on the album of this phenomenal, greatest hits album of the Cars, which they All Mixed Up is the last track. Hear that Smiths influence, like that Smiths also. Um, you hear the Smiths, but see, it's just the structure and what they did with it. It makes it so unique. Makes it so unique. And keyboards, though, very heavy, very heavy standout on this album and their albums. Which, if you can imagine listening to the Cars' first album with no keyboard, um, I don't know. Let's just say if they re-recorded it with, or just took out, re-released it with no keyboard. I wonder how the reaction, how people would take it. That um, more of that stripped down, you know. And you got to remember, this is kind of the end of the '70s. You know, the '80s were right around the corner. And like I said, I think this is the start of new wave '80s music. Um, you know, and I know the Clash first album was the year before that, but you know, it's so distinct. I think is what makes these albums so interesting and why they're listed as some of the greatest debut albums ever, like the Pearl Jam 10. Very kind of another melancholy, emo, whatever, however you want to describe it, rock. It's just unique, so unique. And Pearl Jam 10, 91. So that was kind of the grunge, the start of grunge, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and among others. It's, boy, '90s was kind of, it just, '90s was kind of a weird time, I think, as far as because then you had the Black Crowes on the other side of the spectrum with more of your old like Southern type rock and roll. You know, no frills, no grills, no just rock and roll. You know, um, so yeah, a lot going on. You know, and these albums are, you think the Beatles broke up in '70, 75, 79, 78, you know, 77, like I said. Black Sabbath, 1970, their first album, you know. So it was an interesting time, definitely, you know, between these eras, the 60s and 70s. And what was weird was the 80s was not kind to a lot of these 70s rock bands like Aerosmith, Cheap Trick, um, you know, Rush changed their whole sound. I guess they heard the Police, and which I dig, you know, but you can hear a lot of their influence from like Rush in the '80s was I think the Police, um, and I think Pierre really liked Stuart Copeland's drumming, and I think you can definitely hear that in '80s Rush, and you know, yeah, and bands like Cheap Trick, it was tough, because they had such a unique, distinct style. And how do you change? You got to change with the time, of course, but sometimes it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and people aren't going to want to hear you sound like you're still in the '70s. Music's changing. Look at Queen. They didn't. Their '80s was they kind of had. I think one of their people might disagree, but like Queen also in the '80s didn't really um, set the world on fire with their '80s albums either. But you had to adjust, is all, and sometimes it's hard for bands that has a distinct style and sound to change. You know, um, and it's all revolving. Like you go from like the '50s and '60s, old rock, old, get the '60s. You got your you know hippie rock, whatever you want to call it, or psychedelic. You know, um, then the '70s. You got your Aerosmiths and your ZZ Top and ELO and my gosh, the '70s just bombarded with bands like through the '70s as far as like classic rock. You know, um, but then you got the late '70s like the Cars, Joy Division, the Clash, like from '77 on. It shifted. It definitely shifted with the sounds that were going about to happen. You know, or even Rush. With moving pictures and what '81. That was just a whole different ball game there. But it was still such a great, great album. It's just an incredible album. But it set the stage for their '80s music, really. The last track is uh, did whatever. Very very 80ish. Can't remember the title of the track. I apologize. You know, um, and it just set the tone for them through the 80s. You know, they were using keyboards earlier, yeah, but not like, you know, they Geddy Lee really, you know, uh, really went with keyboards for their 80s. Alex Lifeson, I don't think was really, you know, could have left it. You know, just do what we do. But I think that's you still have to be innovative enough to go with changes, what people are listening to at the time. You know, even though people still want you maybe to sound like you were in the '70s, but that's not the time. You know, so anyway, that's all I got. This evening we listened to a few of these albums, and just great. They are just great, great debut albums that set the tone for the times. Definitely set the tone for the times. I don't know how this audio is gonna sound. I gotta, you know, I'll figure it out. Might need a different cord. Might need a different cord. I'll figure it out. Hopefully you heard something. I don't know, but go back and listen to these albums though, from start to finish. You know, and you'll understand. You know, and what you're listening to was they were ahead of their time. Is what it was. You know, I mean, you know, these albums were ahead of their time, or they just foreseen what was going to come as far as music because they were coming out. I'm sure with a lot of different keyboards that does different things, different sounds, different, you know, synthesizers that just kept on adding and doing more. You know, you had electronic drums in the 80s. Simmons, um, I think, were maybe the first electronic drums. Simmons. I played on Simmons, and you know, and drummers even added them like near Pierre. He added an electronic drum set to his set. So, you know, and I'm sure different guitar pedals to bass pedals to, you know, it's changing. And even in the studio, you know, a lot of went, I guess, digital quite a bit in the 80s. You know, in the 70s, you know, you sat down at the board and you had your EQs and your compressors and your noise gates and this, but really, you know, but now, you know, you have digital boards that have everything built in, and just by a push of a button, like you can save the mix of each place you play, and like just, you know, put it in the memory. So if you play that room again, you just go to it, push the button, and it automatically sets all the levels for you for that room. Me, I still like mixing and turning knobs and and hands on the mixing board. You know, I still like um, I still like the what you put in like that and do it like that. Um, you know, not that digital boards is bad, but like recording now, they don't I don't think bands go into a studio anymore together. They could do it at home on their home recorders and just send it to each other and then have it mastered. It's like they don't even have to leave their home to do albums anymore. I don't know, and I know like the Who, Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey, did not get along, so they sent each other. They didn't even get together, apparently, for a long time. They didn't get along. They sent each other, I guess, song ideas, and then just, the Beatles too, had trouble in their later years. You know, the White Album pretty much kind of was the beginning of the end for the Beatles. And they rarely got together in the studio. And watch the documentary of the recording on that. Because Ringo left, um, and I think Paul did drum tracks. Um, Later, I think George Harrison left during Let It Be, and it was just you know it was over. And you've gone maybe as far as you can as a band, but as a band, you were just great. You may not have liked each other, but together, it's just amazing. You know. Um, so anyway, could go on and on with music. So I'm glad I got the topic. Did music a couple times here. It's awesome. You know, enjoy doing it. Got the rig drum set up, and the guitars and the amps and stuff. So, man, been wanting to talk music for a long time. Yeah, I guess I just was, you just talk out of frustration. Like I mentioned earlier about, you know, you work with it's just people, you know. And remember, God's in control, though, so don't. God knows exactly what you need to do, when you need to do it. And He will put, and that's, excuse me, what I have to keep my faith. You know, it may not work in your time, but God knows the timing. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Please subscribe. I'll figure out the audio definitely for this. I'll figure out. I think I might need a different cord, but I'll figure it out. Figure it out. So anyway, thank you so much. And like I said, I'll be back with a Bible topic on chapter summaries, but we'll sway away from the four gospels for a moment, and maybe we'll do James. Maybe we'll do James, and we'll go through each chapter and kind of what each chapter is about in James, maybe. So I'm gonna pray on it. But thank you, and please visit Slick Teas and Crafts Facebook page. I do like the vinyl, hats, and sublimation, and tumblers, coffee cups, totes, aprons, handbags, makeup bags, whatever, pillows. I do, what else do I do? Permanent vinyl, window stuff for your windshield, and windows in the car. I do um, earrings, luggage tags, mouse pads, coasters, uh, just to name a few things, but Slick Teas and Crafts. And at the end of the month, we're going to be up at 21 Rock there. If you're familiar, close by. It's a fundraiser for veterans, I believe. So I asked him if I'm able to get a spot. He said, yeah. So if you want to come by and I guess proceeds or whatever will go towards veterans for fundraiser. So anyway, God bless and stay safe and take care of one another. Uh, so we'll be back soon and appreciate it. Thank you for subscribing and any ideas or comments or something that you might add, excuse me, to a topic like this. If you know of a great debut album that wasn't listed, send it and we'll listen to it and we'll you know, we'll go through it. No problem. So I'm looking to go get out and play again. I think I'm Jones on playing. It's been a while since I've played. So I think I've got that itch. When you're a musician, I don't think it ever goes away. Even though you say you might not play anymore, oh, you still have a guitar, I'm sure. You still keep a keyboard, you have a piano. It's a God's gift that never goes away, no matter what. You always have, you know, the itch. So hopefully, maybe I'll be able to get into a band or a tribute band of some kind or something. I'll kind of put the word out. So hopefully, hook up with some cool guys and get something going and to enjoy it now. You know. So anyway, I'll get going and we'll see you next time. And please subscribe and pray and just treat yourselves and others well. And sorry for the tirade earlier. It's just, you just get tired, of BS. That's why, look up the Serenity Prayer, the whole thing, and ask God for serenity and wisdom, and take hardships as a growing opportunity. It's not easy. It's easier said than done, yeah. Right, like I said. But anyway, I don't want to say too much. But we'll just do the best you can. So anyway, God bless, and we'll see you next time. Take care, God.